please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's log, subdates 230309.4. I may have forgotten to have Bork's anus reinforced. The weight of the ship we put in there has caused his, bottom to find its way outside. We will see about fixing that when we can be asked. Welcome everyone to the exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start with North Korea and China. Two countries renowned for being remarkably woke, highly progressive, pushing the boundaries of what is and is not acceptable, showing us in the West what's what, how they will lead by example and champion absolutely everything that is right and never for even a moment curtail the freedom of an individual to express themselves, to think for themselves, to be themselves. Was at any point then a sarcasm sign required, ya bitch. We'll start with North Korea because, as the super secret Wonri nation that they are, it's always amusing to me to see how it is very much one rule for me, but not for thee. So much so that, as is well known, Plumpy-un, as I'm going to call him henceforth, is, like his father, a clear example of somebody who actually loves the West, but has to be seen vehemently, venomously attacking the West, because apparently that makes him a good supreme leader, even though as the ruler of North Korea his authority is absolute. The military are on his side still, which astonishes me considering how poorly the military themselves are treated, how willing he is to sacrifice his own family, some of whom were generals, in the pursuit of absolute control. I dread to think whoever takes over from him, mostly because all the generals that served under Plumpy-un will invariably be placed within a pit surrounded by SAM sites, and then blown up for shiggles, while the then future Kim member, no doubt also a Plumpy version, sips on their West Chardonnay, chows down on their West KFC, and chases it with their West, I don't know, something else. What do the West have that North Korea don't? Oh wait, everything! So it should come as no surprise to you that North Korea has warned the parents of their children that if they watch any blockbusters from Hollywood, they will be sent to prison camps. This is Pyongyang's effort to intensify the removal of foreign films and TV programs, focusing on solely their crappy network stuff they do that pretty much just celebrates the accomplishments of what they're doing, all the while everything while looking good on the face of it is actually, once you remove the smoke and mirrors, a hunk of absolute shite. Hardly a shocker, but apparently this is worthy of more recent news coverage. In the past, if parents allowed their children to watch these movies or were caught in possession of media from overseas, they'd get a warning. But this desire to rid the country of all foreign media is their absolute way of trying to be certain anything that their people consume is approved by them first. So the labour camp punishment will be 6 months. However, the children also get punished to the tune of 5 years. 5 years for watching a, Hollywood blockbuster. I can understand that if it's Marvel, DC. In fact, any superhero shite now, just send everyone to prison for 5 years. I am fully on board with this. But there's an additional punishment. You see, South Korea has grown a lot of popularity with their own genres of music. I think K-pop is one of the biggest. They are developing such an entertainment sector. North Korea doesn't like it. So if you are found talking, dancing, or singing like a South Korean, you will also serve 6 months, children and parents. So instead, the children must now learn the state's socialist ideals, because that's what it is. It is believed that things like Hollywood blockbusters and South Korean music runs the risk of brainwashing the population into rebellion. Now I mentioned China as well because they're on one as well. They have the whole social credit score, which is laughable. They reneged on their deal concerning Hong Kong. They're still having a crack at Taiwan, and they really do need to free Tibet. They are very much an absolute theocracy. Believe in the Pooh Bear. Nothing else but the Pooh Bear matters. Pooh Bear is love. Pooh Bear is life. There are also allegations concerning religious freedom as well. Don't think we forgot. Well, as part of their way of trying to also push the envelope, they decided they're going to ban female lingerie models, which has caused a huge problem within certain employment sectors. More notably, female models now are losing work, but the sector itself hasn't entirely died off, and the reason why is because there has been a group of individuals, an entire gender in fact, who have stepped up to perform their duties. I'm not entirely sure if they're womanly or manly, to ensure that the viewers of these live streams, these shows, see the very finest of clothing that are meant for women, so that sales are not as badly impacted, because it turns out there is a loophole in this legislation or order that bans women modeling lingerie on live streams to instead replace them with men. And I'm not joking, here is a picture from the news article linked down below. The Chinese law in question is against spreading obscene online material. This in turn led to the closure of businesses that employed female lingerie models. An e-commerce business owner called Mr. Xu, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry, said he chose male models simply because the designs can no longer be modeled by female models, admitting, "We don't have a choice." I wonder if anyone involved's social credit score is going to go down because of this. I think the right thing to do now would be to have Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh Bear, model some of the lingerie himself. And yes, I said lingerie, not lingerie, because I'm a dickhead. Let's move on before I get struck down by YouTube, who have a bit of a thing for Beijing. In 2019, with a majority of 14,000 votes, Theo Clark was selected and elected as MP for Stafford. Theo Clark is the niece of Jacob Rees-Mogg, so, like him, a conservative. At one point, she had actually served as a trade envoy to Kenya up until July last year, where she resigned in protest of Boris Johnson's leadership. Now, Boris Johnson has taken a considerable amount of flack of late because the Sue Gray report into the COVID party crap has mostly done enough of its rounds that we now know Boris may well have known about everything, and that's going to cause him more than likely to lose his seat as a politician. Not that it matters to him, the guy made $5 million from speeches since leaving office. In her resignation letter, she rebuked Boris for his handling of sexual abuse allegations surrounding the then Conservative MP Chris Pincher. That was the MP that cost Boris his premiership, not Theo Clark, Chris Pincher, because he fobbed it all off. Dozens of MPs actually resigned from the cabinet, which then led to Boris standing down. Recently, even though she's done quite a bit for her area, for example, levelling up fund, prosperity funds, all going to Stafford, as well as millions being raised for mental health services and crucial infrastructure, she's gotten into a bit of trouble. You see, she got pregnant and she had a kid. Naturally, maternity took priority. Dozens of people wrote into her constituency office complaining that she wasn't doing anything. But add to that the boundaries of her current constituency are being revised to take in more rural areas to the west of the town ahead of the next general election in 2024. Well, after spending 6 months on maternity leave, she's been deselected, which means she's not yet able to stand as a Conservative MP at the next general election, which is hilarious. Now, it is possible she could in fact still be chosen by the wider membership of the party, always a possibility, but it turns out she's not the only person. In fact, about a dozen have been screwed over and deselected by their local associations, their constituencies. This puts them in a bit of a bind. The way our system works, they will stay as a Conservative MP for the time being, but when the election comes by, unless they are selected by the party itself as a whole, they're screwed and they're out of a job. It's stupid really, because she only went on maternity leave, but it is also speculated that because she stabbed Boris in the back, along with others, and since it is predominantly them that have been deselected, it may well be a last shot off the bow at them for betraying their Prime Minister. I'll stand on this hill and happily die on it. If someone goes on maternity leave to have a child, I think it might be a bit of a dick move, a considerable one at that, to deselect them the day they get back to work. So as many of you will know, WrestleMania 39 is not far away. Some of the matches have already been announced. For example, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. Many of us knew this was going to happen eventually. Obviously, the injury that Cody Rhodes had meant that he was unable to do it when it was originally intended, which is what I believe may have actually prolonged Roman Reigns' title run, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest. He's a very good heel. I just wish he'd say suffering succotash one last time. Other matches, though, make absolutely no sense. I don't mind the reliance on legends. I don't mind that John Cena is going to do Austin Theory, more than likely putting him over because what does John have to prove now? If he squashes him, it just makes John look bad, to be honest, especially as he's not a full-time wrestler. One, though, made bugger all sense, but again, one understands it because I don't think the WWE know what to do with him, and that would be Brock Lesnar, somebody they pay a phenomenal amount of money to do very little as far as matches go, but because of his power, pulling power, star power, using him is always a good thing. So they've decided to announce that he's going to be competing against Omos, a rather large guy who is supposed to take over from the monster among men, Braun Strowman, because he's taller, which naturally means he's better. You can only have one big monster after all. Braun Strowman is much better, just saying. He's built a bit more, let's say, equally, even though he's tall. He has been clunky, he has been green, but he has improved and he came back and has done quite well since, whether it be enhancing or simply being a monster among men. Omos, though, not so much. He's just big. To me, he's worse than Big Show when Big Show started out in WCW. The guy didn't know how to wrestle. He barely knew how to wrestle when he came into the WWE, in fact. It took years for him to get better. And then, as he got older, he just became a trick pony of 4 to 5 moves. Putting Omos against Brock Lesnar to me makes no sense, but then we find out the reason why. Who in the WWE, who on the board of directors in fact, who loves big, gigantic, muscly men more than anyone else in the world? Who would be nursing one of the biggest Viagra-induced semis at the thought of 2 large, sweaty, muscular men throwing each other around? You're right, Vince McMahon, who stepped down as head of creative in July 2022, and while not being on the creative team, his influence has already been felt backstage. Oh, and before I forget, I saw a MVP Lesnar, thing in the ring talking. MVP talking up the fact that Omos is 7'3", 413 pounds. Brock Lesnar is F5 the Big Show who weighed 500 pounds. The extra 3 inches of height mean jack shit. Omos is going to Suplex City and we all know it. Omos is, if anything, a tie-over contest before Lesnar goes and does some big money contests in Saudi Arabia, if he's still signed to a contract at that point. When the card becomes predictable and we know the answers, the results before they even happen, your card sucks. The only thing I want to see happen at WrestleMania is Sheamus win the Intercontinental title so he's a Grand Slam winner. And while many might build this up and say, this makes money, this draws money, no, it's a circus freak show match. Guy that we know will lift him, but at the same time, oh my god, he's lifting Omos. Bitch, we've seen Lesnar lift people for years. Omos is no different. He really isn't. He is in effect an inferior quality of wrestler to almost every single person Lesnar shared the ring with. And that includes the Big Show.